हेलो सबैलाई नमस्ते। क्लास 11 डिप्लोमेन्ट इकोनोमिक्स युनिट 4 अन्तर्गत इकोनोमिक डेभलपमेन्ट 4.1 मा आधारित भएर आजको यो दोस्रो पार्ट हैन पार्ट 2 भिडियो मैले यहाँसम्म चाहिँ ल्याइरहेको छु। यो युट्युब इकोनोमिक फरसमा अब ढिलो नगरी हामी विषयवस्तुतर्फ प्रवेश गरौँ। इकोनोमिक ग्रोथ इज द प्रोसेस बाइ विच कन्ट्रीज ग्रोथ ओभर अ टाइम। So economic growth that can be experienced in the short run, हैन short run हाम्रो अल्पकालमा पनि हामी इकोनोमिक ग्रोथको चाहिँ एक्सपिरियन्स गर्न सक्छौँ। इट क्यान बी एक्सपिरियन्स्ड, रियलाइज्ड or its result seen in the short times. So it generally refers increased wealth for over a long period of time in the context of the economic theory. When there is economic growth in the long run, there will be economic development. So for the economic development, the first thing is there must be the economic growth. So we'll see the next slide also. Increase in the production of economic goods and services compared from one period of time to another. So we can see there is economic growth due to the economic indicators like gross domestic production, national income. So these are the indicators that we can use whether there is economic growth or not. So let's jump to the another slide. In the another slide there is some information about the economic growth factors. So there are some factors that must be needed for the economic growth. So first one I am here just the capital goods. Capital goods means this is normally the goods which is utilized for the production of goods and services. It is not the finished product. These capital goods are used to get or to make the finished goods. We can give the example like we have the buildings, we have the machine, we have the equipment, we have the vehicles, we have the tools, we have the many things for this one. So these are used for the producing or to manufacture the goods and services. We need the labor force also. If we do not have the required labor force in the market, there is difficulties for the production of goods and services. So technology is also vital factor. We must need the technology. So human capitals, we know human capital also. So human capital is also the important factor. It is very crucial for production of goods and services. Human capital refers to the skills, knowledge or the experience of a person or public which is evaluated based on how much an organization or country will benefit. If somebody has a unique skills, if somebody has a high knowledge, and if they have a enough experience about the goods, about the services, about the production, about the commerce, so definitely the country will be benefited. Country will get the benefit from those person or public. So that is the human capitals. So these are the economic. So next point ma hamle the first economist which was also known as the father of economics, Adam Smith, defined economics as an independent subject, as a different subject. He defined about the growth was related to the division of labor. That means he says growth means rise in the productivity of labor by means of the division of the labor. He defined the economic growth in this way. Similarly, the next famous economist known as the Thomas Malthus, he defined economic growth in another way. So he says growth is proportionate to the current population. He tried to define the growth in a mathematical way. So he means the economic growth is proportionate to the current population. So the human population always actives to increase their production capabilities. जहिले पनि हैन मानव जनसंख्या चाहिँ तिनीहरुको प्रोडक्टिभिटी, प्रोडक्सन क्यापेसिटी हैन वृद्धि गर्नको निम्ति चाहिँ उनीहरु जहिले पनि हैन दे अलवेज एक्टिभ्स तिनीहरू जहिले पनि सक्रिय हुन्छ दे अलवेज एक्टिभ टु इन्क्रिज द प्रोडक्सन र त्यसैको परिणाम विच रिजल्ट्स देयर विल बी फ्यामिन्स डिफरेन्ट डिजास्टर्स क्याटास्ट्रोफिज देयर विल बी सो थोमस माल्थस define the economic growth in this way. So so this means he also writes some of the indicators that means death rates falls and fertility rises in income exists in the equilibrium level. So he defined the economic growth this way. So similarly the neoclassical model which was actually comes in the practice in 1890 by the famous economics Alfred Marshall, which is known as also welfare theory. So those neoclassical economics defined economic growth due to respond the failure of the Malthusian model or the definition that was given by the Thomas Malthus. So the neoclassical model growth they ignore the fact that the growth is related to the or linked to the population and economy. So they ignore the fact तिनीहरूले त्यो फ्याक्ट चाहिँ इग्नोर गरे हैन उनीहरूको भनाइ अनुसार हैन त्यो जुन एउटा आर्थिक वृद्धि that is not related to the population and the economy, that is actually related or concentrates on the supply and demand as the driving force behind the production, pricing and consumption of the goods and services. Demand and supply interaction between the demand and supply को parts लाई चाहिँ उनीहरूले इकोनोमिक ग्रोथ सँग चाहिँ जोडेका छन् हैन र यो मोडलमा न्यू क्लासिकल मोडल एप्रोच इन इकोनोमिक्स व्हिच प्रोडक्सन कन्ज्युम्सन एन्ड भ्यालुएसन अफ गुड्स एन्ड सर्भिसेस आर अब्जर्भ or driven by the supply and demand model. There will be interaction on the supply and demand, so which defines the or which determines the economic growth. Neoclassical model ले यो तरिकाले चाहिँ उलाई डिफाइन गरेको थियो. Similarly, so modern concept मा so modern economic concept हामीलाई modern economic theory भनेर हामी 1932 पछिको पिरियडमा हैन 1932 एडी को पिरियडको पछिलाई हामी लिन्छौं जहाँ चाहिँ लियोनेल रोबिन्सले मोडर्न थ्योरी प्रपोज गरेका थिए. यो अनुसार सो इकोनोमिक ग्रोथलाई चाहिँ अलि फरक ढंगले चाहिँ डिफाइन गरेको छ. देयर इज द इकोनोमिक ग्रोथ इज डिफाइन्ड सेपरेटली. सो द अकॉर्डिंग टू द मोडर्न ग्रोथ थ्योरी मोडर्न इकोनोमिक थ्योरी or this is also known as the scarcity definition of the economics. So modern economics ले economic growth लाई अलग तरिकाले डिफाइन गरेका छन्. According to them, it is the increase in the economic production capabilities with diversification of the types of goods and services it produces over a long period as a result of technological advancement, changes in human behavior and evolution of the social ideas. हामीले यो भन्दा अगाडिको च्याप्टरमा पनि हेरेका थियौ ह्युमन क्यापिटल्समा. So human capital is a major factors. So that they have their own unique ideas, they have the knowledge, they have the experience, and there is will be technological factor, enough labor forces, and if you have the capital goods. So it will these all factors determine the economic growth. त्यसलाई त्यसरी चाहिँ economic growth लाई define गरेको छ र modern definition is a more technological and the scientific in the practice. So अब अहिलेको सेन्समा पनि त्यही दिएको छ. So technological advancement, knowledge, skills, experience, that means human capitals has a major role in the economic growth. Now without doing delay, let's jump to the another slide. In this slide we have discussed why economic growth is important. Definitely economic growth is important for us, for community, for country, those countries who are or who known as the developed country in the world, they have some of the economic indicators that will define that country is a developed country. अब economic growth important हुँदाखेरि the society standard of living that will be high, they have the good housings, they do not have the problems of the basic needs. This is the case of this one. Ability to produce goods and services. अब economic growth को important part के छ भने the economic growth means the productivity or production of increase in the production of goods and services. So the increase in the production of goods and services means that country or that area, that particular place, they have the ability, they have the power, and they are capable to produce goods and services which are actually required for the community, for the consumers. त्यो कुराहरु हुनीसँग भयो. त्यो हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ अब इकोनोमिक ग्रोथ भयो भने we have the ability to produce, हैन, we can produce the goods and services which are required for us. त्यो कुराहरु, that's why economic growth is important. त्यसै गरी economic growth is important in that case if we want if we want to see our country economically strong. So economic growth is important. So when there will be economic growth, in the long period there will be economic development. So that's why here is also another point we have given here. Productivity per unit of labor is crucial. This is crucial important for us because the productivity of labor means in the production function, this is the role of labor is remarkable because if they have the skillful labor, the parts of the human capital we have already discussed from there. So productivity per unit of labor unit is crucial. If they got the more outputs, more returns by applying the few means of production factors, the factor of production, so that is important. So that is productivity of per unit of input is crucial. A nation standard of living is determined by the productivity of its worker. So economic growth is important for us. So now let's jump to the another slide without doing delay. How does economic growth work? And we have given some of the chart. Try to describe about this one. यो चार्टमा हामीले हेरौं. So how does economic? So we have the nation, we have the place where we are living, and if there will be economic growth, the economic growth means the production of goods and services is increased. Aggregate, the aggregate production of the goods and services, that will be increased. If the production of goods and services is increased, that means it improves the market of value adjusted for the inflation. You know the inflation, right? The increase in the price, general price of the goods and services. So if there will be production and if there will be more production of goods and services, and when inflation is adjusted, then there will be employment opportunity. There is employment opportunity, job opportunity for the people. So if they have the job, or if they have the income, so what will they do? Definitely they will consume the product, they will buy the product. That means it enhances, it increases. So it increases the consumption of goods. People have the money, people have the purchasing power. So if they have the income, if their income is increased, if they have the job, that means purchasing power is increased, buying power is increased. So they will start to consume, buy the goods and services. So if they have those essentials which they need for surviving, so if they have these things and if they do not have the problems or lack of those commodities, So it means their life is improves, which we call the standard lives, the way of life living standards, standard living. So that's why, so this when improves, when there is improves in the living style, living standard of the residents or peoples, of those who are staying there, residing there. So it means there will be economic growth. If there will be economic growth, the nation will be rich after that. So this is the economic growth scenario. So that's why economic growth is a one aspect of the economic development. So now in the another slide, so for economic growth we should have the innovation. This is the part of the human capitals. So new ideas, technologies are developed, applied, generating greater power with the same inputs. So if we have the innovation, we have the new technique, new idea, scientific knowledge, experience. So it will help us to increase the productivity. So productivity means there will be more goods and services are produced. There will be production of the more goods and services. So if the production volume is increased, which stimulates wages or which stimulates the business profitability. So if there is profit, if there is the production volume or production volume is increased, if there is the production rate is increased, so in the end it will create the employment opportunity to all. So that means they have the money. We have described in the previous slide also. So that is economic growth. So in this slide there is a circle. This is a cycle. So economic means productivity, productive capacity, employment with rising productivity. If there is a employment is rising, so this means the higher income of the poor, they have the money to buy or to consume the goods and services, because their purchasing power is increased. If they have the money, if they have the income, they have the ability to buy the goods and services. So if they have the income, that means there will be expenditures on health, education and skills, that will increase the productive capacity. So everything is interrelated. Everything is interrelated and this is interlinked. So I will jump to the next topic. There will be ecological boundaries also. We will not go to this one. Now we are going to describe about this one. So economic growth and economic development. We have discussed about the economic growth mostly in this unit, because about the economic development we have described in the previous video also. So in the economic growth, now I am going to one by one. The first is the meaning. So meaning means economic growth refers to the rise in the value everything produced within the economy. We have already discussed rise in the, there will be a rise or increase in the productivity, production of the goods and services. That is economic growth. And economic development, that will be on the long run. This is the program, policies, and it will take time to see the result also. So that is the process of rise the real national income due to the structural changes for a long period time. So that means long period, and this economic growth is for the short term production function. So economic development, that will be seen on the long period. So next topic is the scope. अब हामीले यसको दायरामा हेर्ने हो भने, so economic growth, the economic growth is it has the narrow scope, because if you change some of the factor of production, if you change the labor, if you increase the number of laborers, or if you increase the capital goods, machine, if you buy the new machine, if you have the enough space for working, and if you change some things, if you have the human capital, skills, knowledge, hire something, so economic growth is since, so result comes fast, so it has the narrow scopes. But economic development is a broader compared to the economic growth. So third is indicators. So how we identify this is there is economic growth and there is economic development. There are some of the indicators to identify whether it is economic growth or this is the economic development. So in this part, if we see the indicators, so the economic growth is indicated by increase in GDP or GNP, gross domestic product or gross national product, GDP or GNP, if that is increase. So GDP, we know this one, right? That is a domestic total production that is inside the country, and GNP where NFI, net factor of income from abroad, is included. GDP plus NFI, that means GNP. So if that is rise in the GDP or GNP, we can say there is economic growth. But if you see the economic development, how you classify, how you identify, or how can you define that this particular place they have the economic development, or this country there is a economic development. So economic development, this is a broad concept we have already discussed. So there will be improvement in the human development, HDI is human development index, it's improved. There will be physical quality of life index. There are different indicators to demarcate the economic development. So measurement, how you measure this one? So if you go to measure the economic growth, so we will change, or we will consider about the real GDP and the GNP. So there will be real GDP and nominal GDP. So if you consider what is the changes in the real GDP or GNP, then we can measure easily that economic growth. So in order to measure the economic development, so there will be physical quality of life index, PQLI, human development index. So there are these are HPI, these are the indicators HPI. So PQLI के छ त फिजिकल लाइफ स्ट्यान्डर्ड के छ हैन, लाइफ एक्सपेक्टेन्सी के छ, त्यहाँ फिजिकल क्वालिटी अफ लाइफ इन्डेक्स के छ, अब त्यो के ह्युमन डेभलपमेन्ट इन्डेक्सको सिचुएसन के छ, त्यो हेरेर चाहिँ त्यहाँ इकोनोमिक डेभलपमेन्ट भएको छ भनेर हामी भन्न सक्छौँ. When we see the data of the PQLI, SDI, SPI, then we can analyze this nation is a developed country or developed place or is a developing place. So nature, if you go to the nature, so economic growth is a resultant effect and occurrence, but economic development is a process. You will get the results soon. So you will, when you increase the labor, when you purchase the new machine, new advanced machine, if you change, if you hire the skillful person, then production is increased, productivity is increased. So you can feel or experience soon, but it will be the this is a process, it is a program or a policy, it will take time to see the result. So country, the concept of economic growth is generally used by developing country like India, our country like Nepal. We use this economic growth to face the economic problems or economic crisis. But economic development, mostly those countries who were already known as a developed country in the world, they have the plan to sustain their status as a developed country, or to modernize or to change their economic status. They will plan for this economic development. Reflect. So economic growth is quantitative change. This is a quantitative change. You cannot measure, or you cannot measure the quality changes. It will be quantitative, but economic development is this is a quantitative and qualitative. If there is no economic growth, there will be no economic development. But if there is only economic growth, we cannot say the living standards or other status will be changed in the nation. But in the context of the economic development, if there is economic development, if there is economic development, that means the people's life standard is changed. There will be change in the health sectors, there will be change in the education sector, per capita income, PCI will be changed, national income will be changed. There are different factors. So process, we have already economic growth is for the short period, but economic development is a slow process. It's a slow process. It will take time because it's a plan, program, policies to fully implement those program, plan, policies. It will take time. So we have discussed this one also. So life standards change, we have discussed for this one. I hope whatever the slide we have used to define the economic growth, what is economic growth and what is difference between the economic growth and economic development. I hope this slide presentation helps you to understand about the economic growth and difference between the economic growth and the economic development. In the practice, we have seen or we have feel is the same meaning, but in the reality, economic growth and economic development is a separate parts, separate topics. So I try to pursue the way by presenting those slides, figures, images, and some of the videos. So I hope it helps you to understand about these things, and promise you to meet in the another session. Thank you.